Hello and welcome to a surprise edition of Bucks Podcast. I've got Terrell, Sun Prairie's most eligible bachelor, and Kyle McEwen, our favorite tan tainter in Hawaii.
It's Taint Tanner,
Oh
actually.
yeah, sorry. I forgot my little Wonka. Strike that, reverse it.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. Big news before we we're glad to be back. We're glad to be talking to you guys. Glad to be talking about the Bucks. Very interesting week. We've already seen the Bucks fire their head coach after a 30-13 record, and the next day hire a brand new one. Interesting because they fired their coach of 5 years who won them a championship in the offseason, went with a first-time head coach for this first half of the season, got Giannis to sign an extension. The Damian Lillard trade happens. There's all sorts of stuff going on with why the Bucks decided to fire their coach and now hire Doc Rivers. Interesting enough, Doc Rivers has his number retired in Fiserv Forum, the Bucks Arena, because he played at Marquette and has his number retired there. So this has been talked about a number of times, and when Doc Rivers, possibly coming back to Milwaukee or what the situation might be. But I just want to see what you guys have in your overall thoughts of this. And first, I want to get to the negative. Like, what don't you like about this? If there is,
let's start with the negative.
yeah. Well, we'll end on a positive. We end on a high note here, Kyle. Come on.
Okay.
So, Kyle, start us off. Can you tell me what you dislike about this move, or just some of your thoughts on this?
I mean, it shows a lack of foresight in regards to who they brought in initially with Adrian Griffin as the new head coach this year. But you also
Did he freeze?
sorry, you guys lost me there for a second. Sorry about that. You guys lost me there for a second. Can you? Oh, shoot. No, I can't hear you. This is great.
Terrell, can you hear me?
There you go. You were on mute.
Okay, my apologies. Terrell, what did you dislike about the move of firing Adrian Griffin before we get to the Doc Rivers hiring?
What did I dislike about the move? I guess. If you knew he was going to be put on a short leash, because we have to do something now this season. You have to win this season. That was the goal. We put together this team of Giannis and Dame, Middleton, and brought back Lopez, Bobby Portis. Like, this team is set to win the championship. And if you're going to bring in a coach with zero playoff experience, that is too, and the goal is to win the whole thing, then he's probably going to be put on a short leash. And if he doesn't perform well, he's going to be out of there. And it's like, why would you even go to that route in the first place? It just, I don't know. The hiring, we try to defend Coach Griffin. It just didn't make sense when they did it. There was a red flag early in the hiring, and that was Coach Stotts. He decided to up and leave. And I guess the other part of it too is it seemed like, I don't know if this is true or not, but from a fan's aspect or standpoint here is watching the games, it seemed like Giannis, he was the player coach during the time when Griffin was there. And that Giannis would say, hey, don't take me out. I'm not ready to come out of the game yet. Or Giannis, during some of the huddles, don't call that play. Call this play instead. Or Giannis was just not even in the huddles during the timeout, kind of like doing his own thing. Like, it seemed to me like this was Giannis's team with Coach Griffin kind of being that I'm going to listen to my players. Whereas, hey, I think it's time you find some kind of coaching style, and you stick with it. And that was the problem with Coach Griffin. He just didn't stick with anything that he wanted to do. Go ahead, Kyle.
But he also came into it with some like bad ideas, like not keeping Brook Lopez in that more of that drop coverage kind of defense. That's just ridiculous. He's perfect for that. He was defensive player of the year candidate last year in that defense. And then and that's really what's leading to, even with a good record, Adrian Griffin getting fired. It's the fact that the Bucks defense hasn't been good. Their offense hasn't necessarily been humming the way they want it to hum in regards to integrating both Giannis and Dame as kind of like a formidable duo, something, a unit where they're like a threat to other teams. It seems like that's something they want. And there was a lot of funny stories throughout the season already with Adrian Griffin. If nothing else, he's been memorable in his short amount of time. There's a story from a couple weeks ago where Giannis came out and he's like, the players need to be better, the coaching needs to be better, the equipment manager needs to be better, he needs to wash our jerseys better. And it's just like, he was begging for the change to happen for sure. Most interesting out of all of this stuff is, did you guys see that there's a basketball astrology account that did a post about how it was a bad fit for Adrian Griffin as a Cancer to be paired with Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's a Sagittarius. And
this is the stuff I expect from Kyle McEwen. Hell yeah.
This is from weeks ago, or not weeks ago, months ago. Like this was in like September that he did this post. So I've been listening to these podcasts now, and it's really interesting. He goes through and he's got all these reasons for why teams have good chemistry based on their astrological signs and such like that. And even he'll examine past teams where it's like, essentially you build your team around the chemistry of your stars or your primary players because they set the tone. And when you enable them to be themselves more and more by surrounding them with similar energies or complementary energies, it just ends up being another statistical calculation in a lot of respects. But it's also, I know a lot of people don't believe in astrology as a legitimate thing, but like when you've examined it enough and you've seen enough of the synchronicities between things, now if you can take these data points and apply it to constructing a team that's energetically aligned with each other, and it's just statistical analysis at some point. You can get it down to that. And it's funny that the really good teams right now all seem to have certain synchronicities that line up in regards to their astrological makeups. So, yeah. There's certainly, we'll get to the positives in a moment. The negatives are, you hired this guy, he was fired with a pretty amazing record, but if you watch this team, it's just not quite. I think their record is better than what the team is, and when you look at them up against other playoff teams, how did some of them match up? You have the Celtics blowout, which is awesome. You also have the last two games before tonight where they barely beat the Pistons and really looked awful defensively in both games. There was an inability to coach Brook Lopez for whatever reason, and the misuse of him after you had just signed him to a big deal in the offseason. So I wish Griffin had gotten the shot that he deserved. I also wish he had been more consistent and maybe taken a different approach to how you take over a already set championship caliber team and switching the defense completely. So Brook Lopez is guarding 3-point shooters is just not a great idea. And you guys both talked about the just inconsistency and choosing different things. And one day he decided, like, I got to step up more for Giannis. So then the next game he goes in and makes sure that he gets thrown out of the game for defending, Giannis to a referee. Yeah. And he was open the whole time. I felt like I'm learning as we go here. Terrell, you're absolutely right. The major red flag was Terry Stotts leaving. So ultimately, I think the Adrian Griffin hire was a success. And I'm not even just looking at the record. Here's what I'm looking at. Giannis signing his extension a few days or a day before the season started, right? Giannis, in the hiring process, he was a big part of it, as was Chris Middleton. Mark Stein has reported there's potential that Giannis vetoed the idea of Nick Nurse coming to Milwaukee. Therefore, they hired the guy Giannis did want of those candidates, which was Adrian Griffin. So seemingly Giannis's handpicked guy. So Giannis will definitely has to take some of this and how the season went. And, he's played awesome. It's not like Giannis was scoring only 18 points a game and a handful of rebounds and assists or whatever. Like, Giannis has still been awesome. Lillard has put up great numbers, but we know we can get more out of them in bigger situations and see them play better together and actually be a unit. Also, when Griffin was hired, the idea was, he had a different team than what they have now. You look at the picture from the press conference of Adrian Griffin getting hired, like, Joe Ingles, Javon Carter, some of these other, Grayson Allen is in the photo. It's like guys who ended up not being on the roster anyway. I think AJ Green and Bobby Portis maybe were the only two who are on the team actually, currently. So he had a different idea of what he's been getting ready for all summer. Then you pull the trigger on the Damian Lillard deal, and that changes a lot. And then the Bucks were already in win now mode, but I think with Adrian Griffin, they thought like, okay, maybe we take a small step back this year, still compete, but actually work on getting some of those young players in who wouldn't have played under Coach Bud, Marjan Beauchamp, AJ Green. Certainly, the drafting of Andre Jackson Jr., who I think has been awesome, and I actually appreciate Griffin putting him in as much as he has, and us getting a chance to see him. Because if this was Coach Bud in previous years, I don't think we would have seen this kind of incredible development we've already seen halfway through the season with Andre Jackson Jr. So I do think there are some good things. However, they made the trade for Damian Lillard, and that a little bit changes the idea of what you need. Because then your window's a little bit smaller. Yes, he's the same age as Drew Holiday, but you're really saying like, we've got to win it right now. And so I think maybe that trade didn't align with hiring a first-time head coach. And that's where you kind of had a clunky fit so far. And give a lot of credit to Dame because he's said all the right things. He knew, he's like, this is a process of feeling out. And yes, he has been putting up great numbers, but you can tell the fit has just not been perfect. Let's talk about some of the positives and what you guys are looking for moving forward of getting rid of Adrian Griffin and now hiring Doc Rivers of all people.
Well, that there is Doc Rivers the right guy, or does that not? He seems like he's going to be hired. So,
well, Kyle, that's an interesting point to this. So apparently a month ago, the Bucks came to Adrian Griffin and said, hey, we'd like you to be mentored by another head coach. Like, okay, so let's walk it back a little bit.
As if he's not been an assistant coach for years and been around head coaches.
Right, exactly. So they get the idea, the Bucks front office, okay, Giannis wants us to hire Adrian Griffin. The Bucks are like, man, we got to kind of do what Giannis says until he signs his name on the dotted line. So the Bucks think, all right, if Adrian Griffin is Giannis's guy, let's make sure we hire a couple of previous head coaches to be his top assistants. Joe Prunty being one. He's been an interim with the Bucks after Jason Kidd was fired 6 years ago, like 6 years and a day ago, which is pretty crazy. And then also with the Atlanta Hawks for a little bit, but in their in-between time from Nate McMillan and former Jazz coach Quinn Snyder. Thank you very much. So he's had the interim tag a couple of times. The other guy is Terry Stotts, who is, it's crazy enough, was Damian Lillard's coach for a decade and a former Bucks head coach. But he had no alliance previously with Adrian Griffin. So the Bucks were like, okay, we'll take Giannis's guy, Adrian Griffin, but we're going to back that up by putting Terry Stotts, a previous head coach of over a decade, as his top assistant. And so that way they're kind of covering some holes there. If it doesn't work out with Adrian Griffin, boom, Terry Stotts is in and Joe Prunty's there as well. But Stotts, as Terrell said, major red flag that we saw to start the season is Terry Stotts walks out the door voluntarily.
He was not too legit to quit.
Thank you, MC Hamster. Okay, so then you... there was just some other things like that I'm saying. We saw the Bucks front office maybe not having full confidence in Adrian Griffin, but knowing it was the right thing to keep Giannis. Then about a month ago, you have the Bucks front office starting to come to practices, not just watching from afar, but being there, watching things happen every day, getting an idea of what's being said to players. And they approach they approach Adrian Griffin like, hey, we'd really like you to reach out to someone like a Doc Rivers and, get some more guidance, have him be your coaching Sherpa. And now a month later, they fire Griffin, who apparently was never their guy. He was Giannis's guy, and Giannis does have to take some blame for that, in my opinion. And now they've got Doc Rivers, and that's one of the negatives I'll go back to. You fire your head coach 43 games into the season, 30-13, awesome record. You don't have the full pool of guys to look through. Who wouldn't have wanted this job back at the beginning of the summer? And I hope the Bucks aren't too tied to Doc Rivers if it doesn't work out, or if he doesn't win a championship. My hope is, you go back to that big pool and hopefully find out what's next. Because really, Kyle, it's not an exciting hire. It's not an exciting hire to most Bucks fans.
No, he's won a championship, but it was back during a different era of basketball. It's not. It's just it feels like a desperation hire rather than a we know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you mentioned a different era of basketball. Today's era is more of that modern era of, hey, we're going to score the basketball, put up 125, 130 points. And if we have defense, great. If we don't, we're going to try to outscore you. That seems to be the style of play in today's game. And so they go out and they get Damian Lillard, a guy who can score 25, 30 points a game. And they say, you know what? Perimeter defense for Damian Lillard, not a strong suit, but he can score the basketball. That's the direction we're going to go with. And to Adrian Griffin's defense, he goes, okay, well, I have Beasley as a defender, I have Lillard as a defender, and I have Connaughton as a perimeter defender. He goes, these are the guys you're going to give me? Next thing you know, he goes, well, I have a defensive rating of 121 in January. At one point, the Bucks were, for defensive rating, were 27th in the league.
At some point you have to look at things the way you are logically, Terrell, and say you lost Drew Holiday and Grayson Allen, and those guys are not just great defenders; they're also really good on offense, in their own respects. So there was a lot lost there, and it's a different team. So yeah, we don't need to throw Adrian Griffin completely under the bus here. Aren't they? They're second in the East right now, right?
Second in the East. Yep.
3.5 back.
Yeah, I don't know that Adrian Griffin was all their problems. Let's say that. But I definitely am not convinced that Doc Rivers can come in and fix the problems. Okay.
Yeah,
if you look at the situations with Doc Rivers, somebody made a good point. The fact that Bill Simmons made this good point. The fact that the Sixers are humming with Joel Embiid going out and posting 70 points the other night under Nick Nurse, Tyrese Maxey having a heck of a start to the season under Nick Nurse, and then James Harden getting away from a Doc Rivers situation there and going over to the Clippers and playing under Ty Lue, and is just looking like a terrific player over there, better than he's looked in years. Now, granted, maybe Harden's just healthier too, but there's guys that were playing under Doc Rivers who are doing a lot better now, and I don't know. That doesn't make me excited about him coming in to try to believe that he's going to be the one to fix this situation. Isn't Doc Rivers known for not making good adjustments and stuff like that?
Correct. He gets leads in the playoffs, even up 3-2, even in closeout games. He's lost game. He's been up 3-2 and lost games 6 and 7 multiple times. If you look back, there's some injury stuff there too with the Clippers. Chris Paul being injured, Blake Griffin being injured. You look at some of his other teams, Ben Simmons, there's Embiid the last couple of years. You could say that in some cases. But when it's 15 years in a row, man, at some point it kind of becomes your thing. Interesting that you brought up Ty Lue, because this move by the Bucks is not unprecedented. 8 years ago, I believe, the 15-16 Cavaliers had David Blatt as their head coach. Kind of a random hire, a guy, I think he was big in European basketball. The Cavs bring him over to be their coach, and they had a similar record, around the 30-11, similar to the Bucks, really, almost identical. And the Cavs even were playing well. This is the LeBron is back. It's his second year. They had lost to the Warriors the previous year in the finals. And the Cavs decided to fire their first-year head coach, David Blatt, after around the halfway mark with even an awesome record like that. Tyronn Lue is the guy they hired to replace him mid-season, and the Cavaliers went on to win their one and only championship that year. Hopefully we can see some similar magic with Doc Rivers. I think there's a lot of differences in Doc Rivers and Ty Lue. And if you look at players who played for Ty Lue versus players who played for Doc Rivers, Ty Lue has a lot less guys who hate him now than Doc Rivers' previous players. Don't always have to say. I mean, you look at guys like JJ Redick or Jamal Crawford and things like this, I don't know, things you hear them say. Those are guys who are on the Clippers teams with Doc Rivers. And they seem to be more in the Adrian Griffin camp, just from some of the things that I've seen and read. But interesting that this is not the first time we've seen a move like this, where a team has actually went on to win the title for the Cavs in 2016. Go ahead, Terrell.
You bring up a pretty good point here with Coach Griffin versus Doc Rivers here. So the trade deadline's coming up February 8th, I believe, in 2 weeks.
3 weeks from tomorrow, or 2 weeks from tomorrow. Yeah.
So does having Doc Rivers as a head coach, is that more enticing to go out and get a player and the player goes, oh yeah, for sure, I would totally play for Doc Rivers? Or is it more the player going, I would rather prefer to play for Adrian Griffin? Does that factor in at all? Or is it just, hey, Bucks are making a move, you're going to be on the roster?
Potentially, with buyout candidates, I think that at least does cross your mind. And I also think the front office has to take this. Yes, they've been extremely aggressive going after players they don't even have the assets to obtain, seemingly. But the front office also has to take in on this of like, hey, we didn't give him a perimeter attack defender like we probably ought to have. And the Jay Crowder injury of the last couple months, like that may have changed things. I don't know, but he was still starting Beasley with Lillard, and that probably that was the best option. Personally, as a fan, I'm whatever. I'm just a fanboy. I don't care. I would have loved to. I think that Jackson Jr. is exactly what the Bucks need as your guy next to Damian Lillard. He is, Lillard's small. Ajax has size. Lillard can't, be your point of attack defender, gets killed in pick and rolls, switches, and in the paint. Ajax is great switching 1 through 4, maybe even 5 at times, has the length, can guard anybody anywhere for the most part, and his shot has been better than we had anticipated, because you don't necessarily want another non-shooter with Giannis, a non-shooter. But another positive to Adrian Griffin about Giannis's shooting, he probably never took more than 3 3-pointers in a game. Typically, it was only 1 or 2, and he only took that second one, usually if he made 1 in the first half. So there's some things that I did enjoy about Adrian Griffin, and I'm wondering how that translates with Doc Rivers, some of those positives that we did see.
I don't know if Doc Rivers comes in and makes any dramatic changes. And if he does, I don't know. Like, there's limited things you can do with this current roster. And Andre Jackson is somebody who ultimately they probably should take a look at. I think Malik Beasley's been as good as you could expect him to be. So
absolutely.
I don't want to
best 3-point shooter in the league, right? As of like last Tuesday, a week ago, he was almost 50% and shooting at a high clip.
No, I'm not here to criticize Malik Beasley as much as say, like, that the Bucks need some more defense in that starting lineup, where that's what it feels like is needed next to Damian Lillard. So that's not something that he has to even really be concerned about. You can just go get his buckets. And with a guy like Brook Lopez being a great shooter from anywhere on the court, and then Giannis being so good at getting to the rack regardless of the situation in most respects, I just think you can easily fit in an Andre Jackson around everybody else that's in that starting lineup, especially when Chris Middleton's healthy. Yeah.
I support that. Terrell, is there other lineup changes that you would have liked to make? Obviously, yeah, I agree with Kyle, especially Beasley on the contract he's on. He's really been as good as we could possibly hope for. Yet I don't think that going all in on offense with no perimeter defender is necessarily the way to go.
Players out there right now that the Bucks are potentially targeting. There was a name floating around. His name was Bruce Brown. And I thought about it. I was like, yeah, maybe I could see him being a Buck.
Sure.
He'd be perfect.
And so what do you guys think? That's going to cost us Marjan, or if there's a 3-team trade where Connaughton, I don't know, Portis. I mean, there's really no first round picks to speak of for the Bucks to get rid of. Campaign is an interesting person on us. I think it's just a 1-year minimum contract. A team who's looking for a point guard, especially a backup point guard, might be interested in him. I don't know what Toronto necessarily wants. I feel like you have to go with a third team unless you're going to give up a prospect to Toronto, because I'm not sure what we have to entice them. A team who is looking to rebuild around Scotty Barnes. Is Marjan that shiny thing that they are willing to deal for? I'm hoping Ajax is untouchable.
What? The Bucks don't have that much to give up, I mean, you're talking about Bobby Portis, Malik Beasley, and then
Connaughton has been floated around.
Campaign
has been floated around.
But again, what are these guys really going to bring back, unless it's something that you're lucky that there's another team who's kind of looking to get rid of somebody in certain respects, like, and a lot of the trades lately have been teams kind of looking to get rid of guys, and they're still getting good returns. So
I think that Giannis shuts down any Bobby Portis deal. I think he's that important to Giannis for whatever reason.
It just depends who's coming back, though, man. All right, here's what interesting thing I thought about. What if? Oh man, I'm not excited about the Doc Rivers thing, so I'm still kind of hoping that
it's the least exciting, dude. Yeah.
So how about this? How about the Bucks trade for a head coach, like the Pistons, Monty Williams? Take his big.
So if the name is Darvin Ham,
take his big old contract. Oh yeah, go get Darvin Ham.
That's so funny. So he's the one. It's fun. It's so God. It's funny. So many things lead up to this. Let's say the Bucks don't win the title in 21. Darvin Ham's probably the Bucks head coach. They probably fire Bud and keep Darvin Ham, and Charles Lee is the top assistant. The Bucks win it all, so Coach Bud saves his job. And then the Lakers go on with Darvin Ham. I've almost been rooting for the Lakers to fire Darvin Ham sometime this season, because then I feel like he is the perfect man for this job. He can run Bud's system, but actually players love and respect him, and I think he has a voice that resonates more with players. Also a former player, a role player guy who was like a part of a championship team, Kyle's 04 Pistons.
And Darvin Ham. Darvin Ham, he has a backbone too. Remember with the whole Russell Westbrook? He goes, I need to be a starter. And Darvin's like, no, we're going to put you on the bench. You're going to come off the bench. This is my team now. I'm going to run it.
Yeah. No, I love Darvin Ham. It's funny how things have just gone where he's like one little thing happens and he's the Bucks head coach, maybe even of the last 2 years, right? Or 3. Mm-hmm. It's so fun. Or if he had gotten fired at the end of last year, he probably would have been back with the Bucks. It's crazy how close that has been to happening the last few years, but yet it's not quite there. But let's not rule it out for 2024, 2025. If the Bucks don't win the championship, I'm hoping they don't retain Doc Rivers. I mean, yes, I want the Bucks to win it all, but regardless. And if the Lakers don't win it all and Darvin Ham becomes a free agent, go ahead, Kyle.
If they sign Doc Rivers, though, they're signing him to a long-term contract. They're not signing him to a 4-month contract.
And that's why I don't hate, but that's the major negative of firing your head coach halfway through the season. We did not have the full, group of guys. We didn't see who, yes, this time they went with the glorified up and coming assistant. Darvin Ham is the guy who knows the team. He won a championship with this team. He played for this team. He's won a championship as a player and as a top assistant. And now, he's got his own superstar problems in LA right now, and their fans seem to strongly dislike him. It frustrates me because Doc Rivers is like, what? Okay, right now, who else is available who you would have hired? Like, the former Suns coach.
I saw with the Warriors right now, Kenny Atkinson.
Kenny
was
Atkinson,
mentioned.
who I like.
I would like him because he seems like an innovative coach who's going to always be looking for something
that would have been my
unique
preference
to do.
But how do you get a coach who's under contract with another team? It's not a rival team. It's a different.
Come on, man.
There's ways. All right.
No, I'm just saying if it's an assistant coach and they've got an opportunity to get a head coaching job, nobody's going to stop them from having that going into that opportunity.
I agree. I think the Warriors would have been okay with that. That would have, in terms of who was available, that would have been my preference. And he was one of the top ones.
We can't lose Kenny Atkinson. Get out of here, Steve Kerr. And then they trade Steve Kerr to the Bucks.
Oh, there you go.
I want to see coach trades more often.
It's not there's been some things that we've seen in professional sports before where something like that has happened. Wild times, man. Wild times. Any specific adjustments you guys think is like the first thing? Okay, Doc Rivers needs to first come in and do this, or you expect him to make this change, lineup wise, anything that you guys expect or would like to see right off the bat.
Get back on defense.
Well, that's a damn good start.
The fast break defense. It's kind of hard to watch at times, especially tonight's game too.
And you know what? 15 days from right now, this team might look completely different. We really don't know. We keep hearing the Bucks are extremely aggressive and going after, like I said, players they probably don't even have the assets to obtain. But yes, at least they're trying. They want to make something happen. They want another perimeter defender. We hear a lot of the names. You said Bruce Brown. We've heard Caruso. We've heard Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, Jordan Clarkson. DeJounte Murray is one of the big fish. He's the one I think that, yes, their name is being floated, but I don't feel like they have the assets or the package to come get him unless.
But could they get Bogdanovich from the Hawks instead, which, he was almost a buck.
You want to double down on so you want to triple down on offense is what you're saying?
I just think Bogdanovich for whatever you would end up trading for him would probably be better than whatever you'd end up trading for.
That's fair. One of my big things, I would like to see Pat Connaughton out of the rotation. Man, you got Jay Crowder, you got Andre Jackson Jr. There's just really not room for someone who Bucks fans love him. I know. I get it. I'm an evil guy. But he almost cost the Bucks a championship in 2021. His defense has not gotten better. Yes, we like his effort, and he occasionally gets an offensive rebound. The shooting has not been there. That's supposed to be his calling card. I'm sorry, guys. I loved him in college and as a Blazer from afar. And it's just not good, okay? The Pat Connaughton experience, I know he's Giannis's workout buddy. Well, we're already keeping Giannis's brother, and I'm okay with that. But Pat Connaughton in the rotation, that whole situation has got to stop. That is my first thing. Pat Connaughton cannot be involved in any sort of regular freaking minutes. Please send him out of here. I've just had enough. I've had enough. Okay.
You just jinxed it, dude. You know what the first thing that Doc Rivers
starting rotation.
He's gonna put Pat Connaughton right into that starting lineup.
Please don't. And Bucks fans think I'm such an evil guy for saying this, but I'm sorry. He gets hunted on defense. He needs to be a 40 to 43% shooter, not a 34% shooter. It's just bad, man. He's lost a couple steps, and even before he had lost those steps, it was not working out, and he almost cost them a championship, to be quite frank about it.
You can be whoever you want. Okay. Do you guys have any buyout? Do you guys have any buyout candidates that you've thought about maybe fitting well with the Bucks? Like
that's a great
Kyle
one.
Lowry or a Gordon Hayward, or
I like both. And Terrell's going to tell you a former Buck from that 2021 championship team from the Clippers, who we haven't mentioned yet, as another good perimeter defender.
Oh, PJ Tucker?
That's correct.
Oh, yeah.
he's getting little to no minutes with the Clippers. There's not really a spot for him, so hopefully then he's rested up and he might be just the guy that they need.
Yeah.
What are you guys drinking tonight?
High quality H2O.
Smart
Yeah.
man.
I got the
Smart
best
man.
water. It's coconut water.
There you go.
Electrolyte.
And it's 100% PURE, pure.
That's good. Got my Russian River. We're going Blind Pig tonight.
Oh, okay.
It's great. Some places have it, but they won't tell you. It's not on the shelf. You got to like ask somebody because it's very special. Sacramento area beer.
All right, Blind Pig. There's a Blind Pig venue in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Nice. All right.
Yeah,
Sweet
I've seen the Get Up Kids play there, and
Nice.
some other bands as well.
Hell yeah.
So the important thing to know if you're ever out in Hawaii, and you're buying coconut water at any of the stores, is to look for the label to see what kind of ingredients are in it. And if the ingredients say anything but coconut water, yeah, you don't want it. So, but
Noted.
there's only a couple of different kinds that actually are just pure coconut water. A lot of them will be like, oh, just a 1% sugar added or something like that. It's like, why? Why are you putting sugar in my coconut water? Coconut water tastes delicious.
Do
Why'd
you
you
like
add
Fight the good fight, Kyle.
nothing to it, man?
That's right.
Stay out of my coconut water.
Do you like your coconut water with or without pulp?
So here's the thing. When you drink coconut water out of a coconut, which is another way to buy coconut water here, and that is 100% pure. You can be for sure. You're not drinking pulp when you're drinking it like that, okay? Because the
So
pulp
why
is
they put the
stuck
pulp in?
inside the. Because people get silly ideas and they probably helps them sell things. It's marketing, bro.
So it's
But,
not real? Would you say it's Pulp Fiction?
Ooh.
I did buy a can of the pulp the other day, and it was just more awkward to drink. I was like, why am I chewing on little bitty bites of coconut water when I'm really just looking to quench my thirst?
Yes.
You know, if I want to eat some coconut, I will crack that nut and I will coconut.
That's a pretty good way to end it. I don't know. Do you guys have some final thoughts before we get out of here? Sounds like a no.
So here's the thing. This puts like a pallor or a little bit of a shadow over the Bucks until we know who the new head coach is and until we see if anything changes. But ultimately, like, we're still in a great position. They still have the tremendous amount of ability and talent to win the championship this year. So it's an awkward little moment, but it's if they're looking for a reason to be excited because all the players were dancing in a circle before the game tonight, which was almost like there's a song called "Dancing on Your Grave" or "Dancing on My Grave," but I guess tonight they were dancing on Adrian Griffin's grave. So it was, dude, man, they were all dancing in a circle. It was.
Are either of you guys worried that they fired an actual doctor to hire a guy who just goes by Doc?
At least there's a doctor in the building.
That's right. You can still say that.
Yeah.
Man, I wish him well.
Yeah.
I hope the Bucks do awesome. I hope this is the change that the players felt they needed. And not only do I wish the Bucks and Doc Rivers to do well, I hope Adrian Griffin goes somewhere. I hope he gets a good young team. You know, maybe he takes over somewhere like the Hornets next year or something like that. And I hope he has the Blazers. I'm not sure. But some opening that I hope he does really well. And I think he deserves another shot at a head coaching gig. And, if not, he retires with a pretty awesome record of 30-10 in 13, which winning percentage wise is the best the Bucks have ever had. So
It'd be pretty funny if he went and landed on another team's bench helping out and won a championship. But I mean, it wouldn't be funny for the Bucks, but it would just be kind of funny.
all right. All right, fellas, anything else before I get us out of here? That'll do. All right. Well, I just want to say for Kyle and Terrell, I really appreciate you guys joining us, checking us out. Any like, subscribe, follow, comment, anything you guys have is extremely helpful and appreciated. And just want to thank you all so much for joining us. I know it's been a little bit sporadic, but as we get through the season, things will get more consistent, and we're so pumped up for the trade deadline and this playoff run, and hopefully a successful end to another Bucks season. Thank you all. We'll check you next time.